Well, afternoon, everyone. We've had some amazing return of beautiful weather to this area. I tell you that, just don't move here. We want to keep it to ourselves as much as possible. But to be in the mid-70s and just in the Northwest, there's water and trees and electricity is always on. What a place. But you don't want to live here. We want to enjoy it. It's quite a concept to think about. Like Michelle and I, or by myself, would go to Africa, and the power company would send you a bill for power whether you had power or not. I mean, you're on the system, you had to pay your monthly fee. Now, that had nothing to do with whether you got power. That had to do with they wanted to be paid. So you could go a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks with no power at all, none. And so Dari had set up, we'd try to help him with that a bit. He had some solar up on the roof, and you could kind of make this function. It would run as long as it did. But it was strange. I'm in Nigeria. My freezer's on at home, and I'm not even worried. And I'll come home in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, and everything's fine. And not that there aren't incidents, but I look at the news around the country, and I see that, I remember the funnel clouds in Omaha. You could see them come spiking down out of the greenish, kind of dark gray clouds. And boy, I tell you, this is a sweet spot, but don't come. Everybody's already on their way. Michael spoke a while back, and he was talking about Jeremiah 31. He talked about the English words and different meaning of words and the changing. He mentioned husband in Jeremiah 31, and he tied it to the possibility of, at least the concept was husbandry. Now, I'm not saying that that's what the word should have been in Jeremiah 31, but the point being that there's words that have a different meaning that are very closely related, but husbandry, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So a husband isn't just a master. He actually has a responsibility of service from the English word, okay? And you can go back and figure out the Hebrew, the Greek, whatever it is. But husbandry is kind of an old term, and in the New King James, it's not used at all. I looked it up in the King James, it's maybe used twice. But it's not that we don't know what it means, but it's not just part of the language in a common way. So I got to looking at, okay, what are the Bible terms? And it's like a steward or stewards. And biblically, New King James again, I'm only working out of that version at this point, 21 times. Stewardship, 5 times. And then I looked up overseer or overseers. And again, that was used quite a bit, actually. And so there's various terms that are more common to us. But I wanted to look at the fact that we are stewards by Scripture and of Jehovah's creation. Now, not all of it, parts of it. Okay, we're not stewards yet over the angels. Okay, but the point is, we have a certain amount of creation that's been put in our hands, and we have a responsibility as to what we do with it. And the whole Bible story, you start walking through it, you have all these different parables, and you have the actual examples. Look at Joseph, and in his life, and go back to Abraham and how he worked with his servants. And he had, was it Eleazar that was one of his servants that it had significant responsibilities. So I think, okay, we need to maybe take a look at the fact that what God has given us something, He's put it into our hands, various things, and then He has an expectation where He's going to stop and examine what it is we do with what's in our hands. And it's pretty important part of our responsibility. But let's just go back to Genesis 39, and we can see here a specific example. But Genesis 39, I got Joseph here. It says, Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there, bought him. And Yehovah was with Joseph, and he was a successful man. And he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. His master saw that Yehovah was with him, and that Yehovah made all that he did prosper in his hand. So Joseph found favor in his sight and served him. Then he, Potiphar, made him overseer of his house. So here the term overseer is used, and all that he had put under his authority. And so it was from the time that he made him overseer of his house and all that he had, that Yehovah blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of Yehovah was on all that he had in the house and in the field. Thus he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and didn't know what he had except for the bread which he ate. He trusted him so completely and explicitly. So Joseph, faithful overseer, had authority, but the authority was delegated to him. He couldn't take it for himself, but it was delegated to him because he was trustworthy. Verse 19, you move on down to some bad times had happened. So what Joseph now is thrown into trouble. Verse 19, so it was when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him. His wife had accused Joseph of impropriety. Your servant did to me after this manner, that his anger was aroused. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in the prison. But again, Yehovah was with Joseph, showed him mercy, gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever they did there, it was his doing. So I'd like to say, everything had been handed back to him because he was a faithful steward or an overseer, and you could be trusted. So the keeper of the prison didn't look into anything that was under Joseph's authority because Yehovah was with him. Whatever he did, Yehovah made it to prosper. So in that concept, Yehovah is put into our hands parts of his creation to oversee or to steward or to husband as such and be responsible for it and care for it. And he actually has a relationship in the sense that he blesses the work of our hands. I've tried to look back at Michelle and my life and in our service. The biggest blessings we had were always blessings that walked in the door to us as compared to ones that we engineered. We honestly, they were gifts, they were opportunities, they were blessings in amazing, miraculous ways. And I think we were trying to be stewards and servants in that way, but I just look back, the biggest events and the most fundamental blessings were ones that we didn't engineer. We didn't plan. We weren't that smart. Wasn't that careful. You know, Megan, from the time she was a little girl, wanted a horse. And we would drive through Montana on the way to Tetons, and she'd cry and moan and groan all the way across Montana, all the fields, all the horses. What are you going to do? All right, so the time came when we had an opportunity to get a horse, but boy, you got a cascade of things that now have to take place. Well, at some point you need a trailer. Well, now at some point you got to pull the trailer. Well, you got to put that horse somewhere. The horse got to have a place to stay. Well, and on, but all of those events were blessings where something just opened up, something made itself available. There was a place right on the river at a stable that didn't have no shelter, and it went right down to the water. It was very small. There was nothing on it, and we were given that for, $100 a month back then. Well, the Allwines had lumber out on their property that a man had been raising mules and breeding mules. You breed mules? It has to come from somewhere, right? Maybe you can only, I don't know what the limits of that are. But anyway, there was lumber out there. There was rough cut lumber, 2 by 10, 12, big long piece of rough cut lumber stacked up, and I built an entire stall. And what did it cost me? It cost me nails. nails and some time. And it's like all of a sudden now I got a place for the horse that's worth $300 a month, and I got it for $100, and we just have to pay the $100, and it was there till we left. And I could just say there were so many things, but here Joseph, he's honorable, he's faithful, God's working with him, but God blessed the work of his hands. And things came to him that he didn't engineer. In fact, things were going against him, and God intervened anyway. So we are stewards in that sense of what God has placed in our hands. And I think how we exercise that is important and is significant, and it impacts our relationship to our Father as well. So if you look at the Hebrew and the Greek, and you look up overseer, they're not equivalents, but they're related. The concepts are related, and it's not a matter of having to grasp what's the difference between the Hebrew and the Greek. I think conceptually that works, but it's an interesting thing. If you look up the word overseer in the Greek, episkopos, and then I looked up BibleHub.com, went to Help's Word Studies, and there was a comment there that I thought was interesting. It says, though in some contexts, Church of God, episkopos has been regarded traditionally as a position of authority, and the Presbyterians and the Catholics and the Protestants and the whoever, okay, the Gnostics. In reality, the focus is on the responsibility of caring for others. I go, well, look at that. What's your responsibility as an overseer? Take care of the prisoners. Make sure they're provided for within the law of what's available. Well, what's the responsibility with livestock? Take care of them. Husband them. What's the responsibility if you're a husband to a wife? Care for the wife. If you're parents to a children, care for the children. That's the point. The point is not necessarily what my dad said. When I say jump, you just say how high. You know, actually, people used to say stuff like that. My mom used to wash our mouth out with soap, actual soap. They did that. Now, today I could call CPS and they'd haul her away or me away or something, but not that it would be a good idea. But it's the focus of an episkopos, and I don't want to address too much today the ministerial end of this. That, to me, is a whole process. Will Berg has a paper on the website examining church governance, and it goes through some of the terminology and the meaning. But the whole point of being a steward is to have oversight so that you can be caring for those things that are in your control and responsibly doing so. So I commented, I think the last time I spoke, I mentioned the word rule and how King James wanted authority put into the text. And turns out the word rule was being used before King James ever came along. There were all kinds of people before King James that wanted authority. So actually that dates previous to my comment on it. My comment maybe more authentically would have been Tyndale's use of assembly, I think it's assembly, and then the King James use of church. And so the fact is, no, he wanted the institution, the place where there's authority being emphasized as compared to the people coming together in being called of God. Authority is what men want. And frankly, our responsibility is to care for those things that we have responsibility for, not to be an authority. So in that context, let's look at stewardship. And I want to look at James 1, just as a broad general term or passage, but James 1:16. Do not be deceived, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, in whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we might be a kind of first fruits of his creatures, or his creation. So all good things come down from the Father of lights, comes down to us, and when he puts them in our hands, then our stewardship is to care for those things, because he cares for them and he wants us to care for them, and he cares for us. So that's fundamental to it. So what do you have in the Bible as a record of the lessons that we should observe? Well, parable of the minas. You have 10 minas, you got 10 servants, you give each one. Go, trade, go increase until I return. So one does 10, one does 5, one doesn't do anything. One does 0. I used to think it was 10, 5, and 1. No, it's 10, 5, and 0. You got the 1 still, but the 0 was the increase. Well, that's not stewardship. Stewardship is the 5 and the 10, not the 0. So that didn't go out real well. Parable of the workers in the vineyard, parable of the wicked vine dressers, parable of the unforgiving servant, parable of the unjust steward. I mean, it just goes on and on. And so that's the lesson. And it's repeated pretty much continuously. So, Proverbs 30. It's funny, my eyes are just slightly weaker today. I must, I don't know, maybe I've been looking, using my eyes. Proverbs 30, verse number 10. Do not malign a servant to his master, lest he curse you and you be found guilty. There is a generation that curses its father, does not bless its mother. There is a generation that's pure in its own eyes, yet is not washed from its filthiness. They don't see what it is that God gave them, and they have abused it and misused it and taken it to themselves. They're there to care for things and to assist, not to build them up to themselves. There's a generation, know how lofty are their eyes, their eyelids lifted up. There's a generation whose teeth are like swords, whose fangs are like knives, to devour the poor from the earth and the needy from among men. So that's just simply not what the point should be. We're not here for the benefits, even though the benefits are blessings that we receive. We're here to contribute. We're here to produce. We're here to show increase. And that's stewardship. Even personal increase is stewardship. Jeremiah 12. Tried to pull at least some of the verses that were not maybe as commonly used. It'd be so easy to go through the parables, but I think we know those parables. Just simply be reminded of them. But Jeremiah 12, says, righteous are you, O YHVH, when I plead with you. Let me talk with you about your judgments. Why does the way of the wicked prosper? Why are those happy who deal so treacherously? You've planted them, they've taken root. They grow, yes, they bear fruit. You are near in their mouth, but far from their mind. Why doesn't this always work the way it ought to be, the way I want it? If I'm obedient, then I should be blessed, and if they're disobedient, then they should be punished. There are parts of my life where I focused on people that I thought needed to be punished, and once in a while I maybe thought maybe I could contribute to the process if need be. Wrong. No, that's not what God needs. He doesn't need that kind of helper. But you, O YHVH, know me. You've seen me. You've tested my heart toward you. Pull them out like sheep for the slaughter. Okay, you do it. That's not my place. Okay. Prepare them for the day of slaughter. How long will the land mourn? And the herbs of every field wither. The beasts and birds are consumed. The wickedness of those who dwell there, they said, we will not see our final end. Where are the stewards? Where are the overseers? Where are your servants? Why are they not in charge? Why do you allow these people here to have authority and to abuse what you have given them? That's the lesson. Now, YHVH answers him, and the story is long enough. But again, the point is, our job is to take what God has given us in our hands and care for it, to use the authority we have to evoke a blessing on those whom we serve with. Matthew 7. There was a man that, when we served in Africa, who had been a faithful servant in a local congregation for 25 years. And we went ahead and ordained him a deacon. And within 6 months, as a deacon, he now had an office as it was considered in the Church of God. And Church of God groups want to have people in Africa that they can say, we're an international organization and here's our structure and here's who you can contact. Within 6 months, as an ordained individual, a deacon in Africa is high stuff, okay? Higher stuff than it would be maybe here in comparison. Within 6 months, he put out a shingle as a deacon. He had a Church of God organization choose him as their representative, who now had a congregation led by this one person and his couple of friends in this particular country. I thought 25 years. But it was 25 years waiting for his turn as compared, and you couldn't tell. You couldn't tell. So there's nothing left to wait for. I mean, this is the end of the line, and we're here to assist with what God has given us in the best possible way. Matthew 7, verse number 15. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You can't always see. It's not always as evident as it would seem. But it says you will know them by their fruits. And I would say this, yes, maybe along the way, but also in the end. There's temporarily, we tend to agree with people that we agree with. I mean, if we agree with we tend to like people we agree with, and we tend to question people we disagree with. That's kind of the human part of this thing. So sometimes you have somebody who's actually not fruitful, but we agree with them. It's like, okay, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. There's a different gauge we put in that. But do men gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. That's stewardship. It's bearing fruit. And it's not just personally, but it's also with what we have responsibility for. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruits cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them. And again, not always self-evident, not always immediately. Verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? This is what would appear to have been fruit, at least to them. Cast out demons in your name, done many wonders in your name, and then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. So there is an accounting. It does take place, and we are under account ourselves. But our stewardship is not a matter of authority. It's a matter of responsibility in serve and caring for those for where we have authority to serve. Luke 16 just describes when someone actually invalidates what they've been given to do. Luke 16 and verse number 1. He said to his disciples, there was a certain rich man who had a steward, and an accusation was brought to him that the man was wasting his goods. So he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give me an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward. Now the account goes on from there, but the point is this. Our master is, it's Jesus Christ, Jesus the Christ. Les last week used Yeshua, and I listened and I said, all right, he's ahead of me now. He's moved a little bit further. You know what? Isn't that amazing? We live in a place where you can do that and they won't throw you away. There were places where you couldn't do that because I would have thrown you away. Sorry, I apologize. I can't go back. I hope my final stewardship is better than my previous stewardship. But I will just say this, I did it in good conscience. It wasn't fraud. But I'm so grateful to be in a place where you can make a choice and you can own that choice and you can be responsible for yourself. You can be a good steward before, again, in this case, ultimately, our Father. So the argument here says, you know what? You have not been responsible for what I have given you. You can no longer be a steward, because a steward is to serve. Now that comes out in a fascinating way in the book of Genesis. And I went and I looked this up in Genesis 1, and part of this is just reinforcing, but Genesis 1, verse 3, if I can find this, it says, well, I got down here, okay, verse 3. Oh, I think I'm a little bit ahead of that. Well, I'll go down to verse 10 because it's repeated there, and maybe I just am missing what I'm seeing up above. But it says, God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together the waters he called the seas, and God saw that it was good. So constantly through this creation story, something is portrayed, it's shown as being brought into existence, and God placing it in its place. And then it says, and he saw that it was good. And so it just continually, verse 12, earth brought forth grass, herb that yields seed according to its kind, tree that yields its fruit, whose seed's in itself according to its kind, and God saw that it was good. Verse 16. Then God made two great lights, and the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And so there's this constant repetition of, okay, this is good, this is nice. So if he's going to take something that's good and nice and put it in our hands, he doesn't want it defiled. He doesn't want it mismanaged. He wants it cared for. Verse 25. It said, God made the beasts of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind, and God saw that it was good. And so at some point in terms, you keep going on down, and then verse 31, then God saw everything that he had made, and it was very good. All right, so he's putting that into our hands. Now God, Elohim, in this verse, just chapter is plural. But when it says God saw being a verb, the verb is singular. When it says God had made, it's a verb and it's singular. So while I don't understand the mechanisms of Hebrew, it's showing that this is a singular issue with the God, as it would be seen in the Greek. But then Genesis 2:15, all right, just for sake of the account. God is not a family. He is an individual being, and he has a family. Genesis 2:15. Then Yehovah God took the man, Yehovah Elohim, took the man, put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. Now he's got a responsibility here now that's very specific. And Yehovah God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. In the day that you eat of it, you will surely die. So he's put in the garden to tend and to keep it. So Genesis 2:15, I've got to where I've started to look up the literal versions just out of curiosity to see what they say. So you got Young's literal translation and the literal standard version. And they both say, instead of to dress and keep it, they say to serve it and to keep it. So I looked that up, and it's true. It's work and it's serve. So the text is actually literally a reference to you are a steward, you are an overseer, you are in husbandry, and your to take what I created, and your service is to keep it and make it prosper and grow and increase. And who gives the increase? Well, our Father gives the increase. So you plant the seed. Do you make it grow? No, he makes it grow. But you plant the seed. So I just thought, okay, so here you have Genesis 1. It was good, what he did, what God did. In fact, he looked at all of it and it was very good. And then he handed off to Adam and put him in there and said, all right, now I want you to serve what I have created. You serve it and keep it. All right, so that's the whole story. That's the point. So where does that kind of come to judgment? Well, Revelation 11. Says, verse 15, the seventh angel sounded. There were loud voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. God the Father, our Father. And the 24 elders who sat before God on their thrones fell on their faces, worshipped God, saying, we give you thanks, O Lord God Almighty, the one who is, the was, and actually would be, and who is coming. It's not, the last part's not part of the title, actually. Because you have taken your great power and reigned. Nations are angry, your wrath is come, the time of the dead that they should be judged, that you should reward your servants, the prophets, and the saints, and those who fear your name, small and great, and should destroy those who destroy the earth. So Genesis 1 says it was very good, and you are to serve it. And Revelation 11 says, you have made it very bad, you're destroying it, I will destroy you. So the whole story in between is the responsibility that we have to care for those things that our Father has put into our hands. And to me, that's just, it's just so significant. So what does he put into our hands? Well, our lives are in our hands. And we're not in full control of our lives. Others at times are. But what our focus, our thoughts, our efforts to maintain this flesh, our need to care for it in a way that is going to cause it to prosper, that's in our hands. And to the degree we have ability, that's what we need to do. Deuteronomy 6 is, again, I was going to just kind of mention this, but let me just read this. It says, hear, O Israel, Yehovah our God, Yehovah is one, or he is our God only. He alone is our God, okay? Whatever ultimately the reference to that would be. But it says, you shall love Yehovah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. That's what we have to choose. We give him everything. We give him all of our time and thoughts, our energy, because he gives us this gift of life, and it's in our hands, and we need to know how to use it and use it well. So Norman Cousins wrote a book. He's dead now. He lived to be about 75, but he wrote a book, The Anatomy of an Illness, according to the patient. It was way back. I ordered it yesterday because I couldn't find my copy. And Michelle and I had been discussing this because Michelle's working on reading some material to have peace of mind, be able to go to bed and rest and sleep. You know, what does that take? What's our part in that? And how do you achieve that? So she's handed me some things that she's been reading and working on, and it made me kind of go back. So it'll be a separate process where I want to go through maybe more specifically in terms of what it is that we should be physically doing if we can, to the degree we can. But he had this terrible illness and he was going to die. And they couldn't help him and fix him, and he's laying there and he decides that, well, he needed to lighten up a bit. And so in the book, and again, it'll come in a week or two, but in the book, he started watching movie reels and stuff of, Laurel and Hardy, whatever he did that was funny to him, and he would watch it and he would laugh. and he would read things that were humorous and positive and good. You know, think on these things kind of a thing. And he actually got well. He got out of the hospital, and I'll someday maybe go back through some of the details of that. But it was an amazing thing. He wrote a book showing how his whole health structure changed with his attitude and approach in that case. The body was strengthened and began to heal. And like I said, it was an incredibly well-selling book at the time, and very graphic in its portrayals. So we suffer pain, damage, and injury, but we need to learn to be grateful, thankful, and content. So joy isn't the same as happiness, all right? And peace isn't the same as, we discussed that this morning, Michelle, peace and, this is kind of all joy. It doesn't mean you're going to be happy when you suffer. And the peace of God is not the same as I feel good, okay? It's not the same as that. It's having a certain mentality even to the degree that maybe you don't feel good. And so what we have to ultimately be able to do is see the end of the matter, but also the purpose. We need to see what God is doing and the fact that even in our trial, there's some gain. My hat that I wear, on the back of it, it was a gift to me. Pain is our friend. I don't mean being tortured is our friend, but I mean if we just did things that felt good, then we wouldn't always do what we need to. Sometimes I'm driven by the fact that I don't feel good, and then I try to figure out what it is that I can do to be better. And I think in life sometimes that's how that plays. But Psalm 34. I do have a few verses I wanted to go to in terms of we're being shepherded, okay? The Father, our Father, is the great shepherd, okay? Jesus Christ is the good shepherd. And then we have oversight and responsibility of those things under our care as well. But Psalm 34. It says, I will bless Yehovah at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make its boast in Yehovah. The humble shall hear of it and be glad. Magnify Yehovah with me. Let us exalt his name together. So it's not saying I'm going to do this when I feel good, or if I feel good, then I'll do this. No, it's a matter of this is our purpose. We rejoice in his perfection, his creation, and his gifts. I sought Yehovah, and he heard me, and he delivered me from my fears. They looked at him and were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. This poor man cried out. Yehovah heard him and saved him out of his troubles. The angel of Yehovah encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them. Like I say, have I had some hard times? Has Michelle had hard times in our lives? Yes, we have. But the greatest blessings that we've received came to us. We did not engineer them. We didn't figure it out. We weren't that smart. There was no college fund when the time came for the kids to go to college. There was none. I said one time at the table in Cincinnati at lunch, thank God my mom died. Well, that upset a few people at a distance. One person actually shook his head visibly, was so upset that I had said such a terrible thing. Well, the group I was in discussion with knew what I was saying. The fact is my mom died. We cared for her right up to the end. She lived where she had nurture and love and assistance. When she died, the house was paid off and it went into 4 pieces and 1 piece came to us. Well, you know what? It bailed us right out of the hole. Right there, right then and there. When Megan got that horse and you had to have a place to put it, then you had to have a place to tow it, then you had something to tow it with. My cousin had a red Suburban that was fairly new, and he decided that we needed it more than he did. And so he gave it to us at a price which was so low that the DMV made me get a certified statement to prove that he had actually done it at that price. Okay, we're driving around a Suburban now. You go to the activity in Missoula, and we drive up in this big red Suburban that looks beautiful, and everybody looks like, what kind of job do you have? Well, you know, we didn't engineer this. But those things just came from various places at various times. Taste and see that Yehovah is good. Blessed is the man who trusts in him. Fear Yehovah, you his saints. There is no want to those who fear him. Young lions lack and suffer hunger. Those who seek Yehovah cannot lack any, shall not lack any good thing. Again, this is the result. I've watched videos of, they're on YouTube, and there'll be animals and there'll be lions there. I can't watch them anymore. I can't watch a lion jump on the back of an ox or a bull or a cow or something and just eat it. I can't do it anymore. Now, how could I used to do it? Oh, I don't know. It just didn't look quite as bad as it is. But I go, you know, these animals are eating grass. Leave them alone. Just let them eat the grass. Leave them alone. But no, we're going to eat them alive. Well, there's some things that we're going to have to learn maybe about the creation. You can have your place, I'll have mine, but that just doesn't sound, grizzly bears just doesn't sound like God's nature. There's something in the creation that was changed, and it was changed because of possibly sin, disobedience, and there was now a consequence, and then it's going to have to be restored where, you know, your child can sit by a hole where there's an adder and he's safe. So they're going to eat straw. So something was switched. But I can't watch it anymore. It's just so brutal. I long for the time when that will be restored. In our life, there's brutality around us, and yet we are under our Father's stewardship, and He's perfect, and He will see us through. Come, you children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of Yehovah. Who is the man who desires life, loves many days, that he may see good? Okay, then do your part as well. Keep your tongue from evil, your lips from speaking deceit. Depart from evil, do good, seek peace, and pursue it. The eyes of Yehovah are on the righteous. His ears are open to their cry. You know, what is it? Psalm 77 says, you know what? I couldn't sleep. My eyes are open. All I can see is my misery, and I cry out to you, and nothing happens. And then it says, and then I thought, I will remember the right hand of God Most High, the days of the right hand of God. I'll remember all the things He did do when I was so grateful. And then it changed. The attitude changed. The depression changed. So Michelle's sitting there this morning. We had time for a little bit of coffee on the patio. She, you know, I'm trying to look at things and see the beauty, or maybe I won't get the words exactly right, but I'm trying to find things that I'm grateful for and just start to think more about that, to say more about that. Okay, that's good. That's where we need to be. Eyes of Yehovah are on the righteous. His ears are open to their cry. The face of Yehovah is against those who do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. And again, you start with Genesis 1, but you end in Revelation 11 on the topic. And the people who are not proper overseers, proper stewards, proper husbandmen are going to be destroyed, and their evil deeds will cease. The righteous cry out, Yehovah hears, delivers them out of their troubles, all their troubles. Yehovah is near to those who have a broken heart, and saves such as have a contrite spirit, who have not lifted themselves up to exercise authority over those around them, who dress or nurture or serve the creation instead of pillaging it. You know, when the time comes and they measure who dressed and kept the earth, I want to watch and see what Terry gets, because he cuts it, trims it, grows it, eats it, talks about last thing before he dies is peach juice going down his face. And I go, I don't think I'll ever forget that. I just like, oh, there he is. He's laying there, and look at the peach juice, and he's happy, he's smiling. You know, he's trying to be a steward of God's creation, and he lives his life trying to be a steward of God's creation. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, which means they take place, but Yehovah delivers him out of them all. So first the affliction, then the delivery, all right? Depending on how that takes place. He guards all his bones, not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked. Those who hate the righteous shall be condemned. Yehovah redeems the soul of his servants. None of them who trust in him will be condemned. So there's a finish to it. But you know, I learned more sometimes from discomfort than I learned from pleasure. What did I learn from pleasure? Give me more pleasure. Well, okay, maybe that's not the lesson. What did I learn from discomfort? Maybe you'd better do what it takes to not be so uncomfortable the next time. So I'm on statins. Statins take away your muscle structure. They specifically take away your muscle structure in the small of your back, and for why, I don't know. So I've blown out on a couple of different ones and had to come home from trip or whatever because I was just wrecked until I could heal up and start over later. So I told this story, start cutting down that oak tree, start digging out the roots. I could hardly stand up, and it's because I had allowed the medicine and my own sedentary approach toward that. I'd allowed it to overcome my muscle strength. So every day I just got up and tried to stand and work my way and go out and dig more. You know what? The stump's gone, the roots are gone, the hole's filled. We went out and bought a bunch of big rock crystals that are made out of basalt and stacked them in there to make a little feature, which we love. And you know what? In the process, my back's okay, actually. I can tolerate the level of medication I'm on if I do my part. So, Michelle's coming out of her hip surgery. So last night we went out and we walked. Well, we went out the night before that and we walked. Well, we couldn't used to do that. Well, we can do it now. So every day we're going to go walk. Every day we're going to take it a little further. Every day should be a little stronger. Does that mean something else won't go wrong? No, that doesn't what it means. What it means is we have the ability to do things that will help ourselves, to take stewardship of our flesh. We got married late. I was enjoying myself too much. Maybe we got married late. I was 30, Michelle was 27. It was another 8 years to have a child. So I'm thinking, all right, I'm now 38. We have a baby. It's going to take 12, 13 years for them to become a teenager. 38, 48, 51. And at 51, I need to be able to be a daddy to a teenager who wants to do some activities and go places. And so I was always fairly interested in exercise, but my driving motivation was to be there when the time came with the strength and the endurance and the health to be there as a father to a child that was now going to be athletically possibly involved. And so I did. Years. I ran, did the push-ups, did the sit-ups, made the hikes, put on the weight. I am going to be there if I can when the time comes. And you know what? I was. But it wasn't an accident. It wasn't happenstance. It was actual, specific, dedicated effort. Now, did God allow me and bless me to be able to do that? He did. But it was a very specific goal and purpose. So we have our part. This flesh is our gift. We have responsibility and oversight over this flesh, over our marriage if we're a husband, over our children if we're a parent. And God measures that. He watches that. But he also intercedes along with that. So Proverbs 4. verse number 20. Let me make sure I'm in the right spot. My son, give attention to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them depart from your eyes. Keep them in the midst of your heart. You do this. This is stewardship of our body and of our mind. They are life to those who find them, health to all their flesh. Keep your heart with all diligence. You know, there's nothing of a bad memory is not an upgrade. It's better to not have the memory than to have to forget it. It's better to not have the memory than have to heal. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. Well, you know what? All of the things that happen in our life, so many of them come right out of our own mind. Something we said, something we did, something we didn't say, something we didn't do. Put away from you a deceitful mouth. Put perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look straight ahead, and your eyelids look right before you. Ponder the path of your feet. Let all your ways be established. Do not turn to the right or the left. Remove your foot from evil. So I'll give an example. I haven't shared this example in many, many years, but I have shared it. There was a time when I had a job and you had a secretary. And my job was such that there was a lot of hours. It was a time when the Church of God had been put under receivership and the fleet cars of the ministry had not been traded out. And so they ran up miles, miles and miles. And pretty soon you're having to buy one car at a time and get back and to catch it all up. And you know what? It got to the point where I worked in the office. I worked in the evening. On Saturday night after the Sabbath, I would go back in the office. There were nights I slept in the office to try to catch this up, work on Sunday. I gave it everything I had the energy to do. Well, you know what? I had a secretary. So the secretary was going to be in the office too. And not always, she wasn't coming in for the Saturday night after Sabbath. That wasn't going to happen, or Sunday. But the fact is, I needed a new secretary, and so I interviewed. And there's a person I interviewed that was a friend of mine who had wonderful abilities and personality and a dear friend, but not a lot of secretarial experience. There's another person that I interviewed that had unbelievable ability and secretarial experience and was clearly the best one qualified for the job. And I told Michelle what was going on here. I hired the least experienced, the lesser, not least, I hired the lesser experienced person. You know why? Because I wasn't attracted to her. That's it. That's the answer. Now, I didn't tell everybody that because, what, you've been fired, you're fired, you know, get arrested. I don't know what the problem is there. No, the secretary with the skills was attractive to me, personally. The things she had done in her life, the way she handled herself, the things she could do. You know what, I just thought in my mind, I can't be around you all the time. I didn't tell her that. Everybody thought I was crazy. They ended up hiring her as a main secretary in the office because she had such good ability and could do so many things. But I told Michelle, I can't hire her. She's attractive to me. I can't be in the room day after day after day after day with this person who's attractive to me and not have this be a test. I don't want the test. I didn't hire her. So, you know, it's an amazing thing. I don't know how many people would ever admit something like that or how many people would actually choose to do something. You know what? Keep your heart. Don't go places where you are at risk. And you should know what your risks are. You know, ponder the path of your feet. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Don't turn to the right or left. Don't put yourself in a place where you're going to be tempted. I don't care if it's a bar. I don't care if it's a dance hall. I don't care if it's a bank. Whatever it is. I don't care if it's the internet. Whatever it is. Keep your heart. Keep your eyes. Keep your steps. That's stewardship. That's what we have to do. Proverbs 17. verse 22. Turn 2 pages, didn't look quite right. A merry heart does good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bones. You know what? A broken spirit doesn't just dry your bones, it dries the bones of those around you. That's how that works. A merry heart doesn't just do you good, it does those good around you. So when someone is suffering and yet they're striving to manage and be positive about the fact that Yehovah is their shepherd, then people have sympathy and are genuinely empathetic and want to assist. But when someone is suffering and they're upset, they're angry, they're unhappy, they're miserable, and you walk up and they just dump on you all of their trauma, and it's the same time each time you do, you know what happens? After a while, there's just a hole around that person with no people in it. People just start staying away. So we have this flesh, we have our mind, we have our calling, and it's in our hands. And we need to exercise stewardship. We need to reach for the things that are good. We need to draw back or away from the things that are bad or risk. I had a steady job, the ministry, steady job. It wasn't a lot of money. There were no big years, but it was steady. And so you just had to make sure you just didn't make a mistake. That's it. Don't make a mistake, because you're not going to recover from a mistake. And then let God bless you. And he did. And so I'm so grateful. But, you know, restraint is so important. Proverbs 25. Verse number 16. Have you found honey? Eat only as much as you need, lest you be filled with it and vomit. Okay, honey's good. God created it to be good. And if you found it, then you better use some restraint. So after the feast last year, the year before, a big tub of biscotti appeared on the back table, brought home. And it was there for a while. I was really appreciative that everybody exercised restraint, because I'd go every week and I'd pick out a biscotti and eat it. This is good, chocolate on the side. It was really good. But I always looked at it as almost too luxurious. You know, I'd just visit. Well, yeah, last week I went by Costco, and down the aisle there was a tub of biscotti, and I go, you know what? I'm going to buy it. So now I'm going, how many of these am I going to eat? You know, it's good. But it says, look, find honey, eat only what you need. Have you found prosperity? Only use it in the way that is beneficial or prosperous and helps others in service. You know, how much steak can you eat? Well, okay. How much? At some point, God gives us a blessing, but he wants us to use it and be careful. Verse 27, it's not good to eat much honey. And there's a lesson here. It's not just about what the bees are doing. It's not good to eat much honey. So to seek one's own glory is not glory. He who has no rule over his own spirit is like a city broken down without walls. Well, if the city is broken down without walls and people can walk right in, you have no defense. So he has no rule of his own spirit. So they did many years ago experiments with children where they would put them in a room and put something in front of the children, I don't know, a piece of candy or something. And they would tell the child that if you wait till I return and don't eat that, I'll give you another piece of candy and you'll have two. And then they left. And I'm paraphrasing the story, so maybe it's an imperfect reference. But what they found out as they followed these children over the years, and I've read the studies, I've read the follow-up studies, I've read the analysis of the follow-ups and the criticism over the years, but effectively, When the person left the room, the child who took the candy popped it in their mouth had lower academic scores, had lower job skills, had lower success at being able to fulfill and complete institutions, had more problem in relationships in various ways. Now there's limitations to that. If you've been abused and people have lied to you and they tell you something and leave the room, then you may not believe they're going to come back and honestly keep their word, so you'll take what you got now. That's in a little different place. There's reasons for some of these things. But if you don't rule over your spirit, it will destroy in stages all the elements of your life. All the elements of your life. You have to use restraint. You have to be willing to wait. You have to not try to satisfy yourself when it's not the time. And then when it is the time, then the gift is a greater blessing. That's our stewardship of us, our mind. Ecclesiastes 10, verse 16. So it works in different ways, obviously. There it is. It says, "Woe to you, O land, when your king is a child, and your princes feast in the morning," because a child doesn't typically offer restraint at the level that would be necessary for a king. If the princes are feasting in the morning, then they're more concerned about gluttony than they are about their service. They're more concerned about what they have than they are about what you have. "Blessed are you, O land, when your king is the son of nobles, your princes feast at the proper time for strength and not for drunkenness," not for consumption, but for the ability to serve, to work, to produce. 1 Corinthians 6. Verse number 12. Paul writing, he says, "All things are lawful for me, but all things are not helpful." All things are lawful that are lawful, obviously. Not everything is lawful. "All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. I will not be their slave. Food's for the stomach, stomach for foods. God will destroy both it and them. Now the body is not for sexual immorality, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body." So that's a type of restraint. And it's a type of restraint that is, in our society, has been absolutely just abused on an epidemic scale. "God both raised up the Lord and will raise us up by his power. Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ? Shall I then take the members of Christ and make them members of a harlot? Certainly not. Do you not know he who is joined to a harlot is one body with her? For the two, he says, shall become one flesh. But he who is joined to the Lord is one spirit with him. Flee sexual immorality." Don't just walk away quietly, slowly. Flee sexual immorality. "Every sin that a man does is outside the body, but he who commits sexual immorality sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own? You were bought at a price." You're not your own. You don't own yourself. You're a servant, and you are to be a steward or an overseer or a husbandman over that which God has given you. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. We're not our own. And we don't get to just do whatever it is that we please. Now, I had a section I wanted to go through stewardship of Jesus Christ, and I think I'm going to pass. Jesus Christ is perfect, was perfect. He learned obedience. Well, okay, that's interesting. In the flesh, he learned obedience. Because until you're in the flesh, you don't have the same level of test and trial and discomfort to experience, "I will now do that the way my Father said." So not having learned obedience in the flesh didn't make him imperfect. He was still perfect, but he learned, and he learned in an additional way. You know, God, our Father, has never learned obedience. Well, he doesn't need to, but he's never learned obedience. He's perfect. He has a perfect will. And he cannot sin. And he set himself in that way. And he exists in a way which I don't know that we could understand fully. But Matthew 20, I want to read a little bit of this. I think maybe the stewardship of Jesus Christ can wait for another time or another place. Matthew 20, verse number 20. The mother of Zebedee's sons came to him with her sons, kneeling down and asking something from him. And he said to her, "What do you wish?" She said to him, "Grant that these 2 sons of mine may sit, one on your right hand, the other on your left, in your kingdom." And Jesus answered, said, you do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink of the cup I'm about to drink and be baptized with the baptism that I'm baptized with? Because that's the point. Are you able to serve the way I serve? Well, I said, yeah, we're able to do that. Well, okay. Then you will indeed drink my cup, which is not a thimble of wine in a silver tray. It's the burden, it's the service, it's the sacrifice that he made. We took the symbols of Christ's sacrifice and turned them into a ceremony and said it was a matter of salvation to do a physical thing. Well, okay. You will indeed drink my cup and be baptized with the baptism that I'm baptized with, but to sit on my right hand, my left is not mine to give. It's for those whom it's prepared by my Father. So the point is not we want what is in our own desires. Our point is take the strength and the opportunity we have and use it as a shepherd, as an overseer, as a servant. Serve the creation. Serve the creation. When the 10 heard of it, they were greatly displeased with the 2 brothers. Jesus called them to himself and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. Whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. Whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." So, you know, Philippians 2. Let me add one here. Just Philippians 2 in verse number 5. It says, "Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, purchased, owned, under authority, coming in the likeness of men, being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. Therefore God has also highly exalted him and given him the name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, of those in heaven, those on earth, those under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ, the Christ, is Lord, to the glory of God the Father." So he came and he showed us how it would be done. Now our stewardship doesn't end here, and this is an issue that I've addressed, but then I retracted. Well, I didn't retract. I parked my addressing it aside because of questions that were raised. But at some point, I need to come back and bring this forward again. There's going to be life go on forever and ever. The kingdom will go on forever and ever. Those who have eternal life will live forever and ever. And you know what? The earth's going to be there forever and ever. Well, the physical things aren't going to disappear and become spiritual things completely. Some things will become spiritual, those in the resurrection. But the physical isn't actually temporary, I don't believe. I don't believe it's temporary. Deuteronomy 4. So many things to consider, so little time. Take heed to yourself, verse 15, Deuteronomy 4. You saw no form when Jehovah spoke to you at Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest you act corruptly and make for yourself a carved image in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that's on the earth, or the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, likeness of any fish that's in the water beneath the earth. It's not saying you can't have art. You do not worship and come fall down before the creation. And take heed, lest you lift your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the host of heaven, you feel driven to worship them and serve them. Moon worship, sun worship, worship of angels, which Jehovah your God has given. The sun, moon, the stars, all the host of heaven, Jehovah your God is given to all the peoples under the whole heaven as a heritage. You're going to inherit the universe. And the universe is going to be seeded, as the Bible says. So, this doesn't end. Our stewardship isn't going to expire. It's going to increase. It's going to, well, let me read Psalm 148 here. It's going to expand, and our responsibilities will expand accordingly with our willingness to apply the authority that we have been given. Let them praise the name of Jehovah, Psalm 148, verse 5. For he commanded, and they were created. He also established them forever and ever. He made a decree which shall not pass away. What's he talking about? The heavens, the heights, the sun, moon, the stars, the heaven of heavens. I don't think we're going to fully understand new heavens, new earth until we see what it is that God does. But it's a renewing of the heavens and the earth. It's a restoration. What he created was good. It was very good. It was all good. It doesn't have to go away to be good. It was good to begin with. What happened to it? Well, he let us be here, and we were destroying it and are to this day, and one day he'll destroy those who continue to. They will be gone. He says no more. Ecclesiastes 1. Verse 1. Not doing too well on my turning here. The words of the preacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit has a man from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? One generation passes away, another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. Well, I think if you took that by itself, you might explain it away. I think if you take it in the context of the rest of the creation, of the heritage of the sun, the moon, the stars, and all of the heavens, the fact is, they're going to be there. I believe the earth is going to be there. I believe you're going to be able to plant plants in the soil, and they will come and give increase forever. I believe that. And I believe an argument can be very much made. I want to go to Isaiah 9. I looked at this for a long time. I thought, Mark, why go there? It's one of the hardest verses in the Bible. Okay. Let's at least consider what's being said here. Isaiah 9, verse number 6. It's talking about there be no end to governance, to increase. You know, you can't have increase without increase. That's how it works. You know, you can't have a static number and call it increase. That's not, you know. Unto us a child is born. Unto us, verse 6, Isaiah 9:6. Unto us a son is given. The government will be upon his shoulder. It's a prophecy. His name will be called, now I'm going to read you the King James here, the New King James, then I'm going to come back and read you a couple of other renditions of this. His name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there'll be no end. Upon a throne of David over his kingdom, to order it, establishment with justice and judgment from that time forward, even forever. The zeal of YHVH hosts will perform this. So we, in the English here, and according to our traditional consideration, you know, Jesus Christ is going to be Wonderful Counselor. He's Mighty God. He's Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and it's his government that increases for eternity. Again, you can't have increase without increase. All right, so I have some marginal notes here in my Bible, and I put them into my notes here. So the Hebrew, which means I've had some help on the text. I didn't just go, you know, make up the Hebrew. I've had some assistance on the Hebrew. But the Hebrew reads, the counseling wonder, the mighty God, the Father of eternity, will call his name the Prince of Peace. Well, wouldn't that be a little different rendition of, well, why would that be that way? Well, maybe it's because the Hebrew is not rendered into the English in the proper way. So the Septuagint is also a rendering of Hebrew into Greek. And the Septuagint reads, you can look it up. Just go to Bible Hub, go to this verse, go to the Septuagint on the markers. It'll tell you right there what it says. His name is called the messenger of great counsel, for I will bring peace upon the princes and health to him. Now, I can't sort why Hebrew seems to read one way, sometimes the Septuagint reads another way. But if you take Jeremiah 31 in the Septuagint and you quote it in Hebrews chapter 8 in the Greek, and it is the match, then I don't discount the Septuagint out of hand. I think there's times when that needs to be very well considered. So then let's just wrap up in the end of the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is probably one of the most fascinating books in Scripture. Isaiah 51, in this case, verse number 12. I, even I, am he who comforts you. Who are you that you should be afraid of a man who will die? And the Son of Man who will be made like grass. And you forget YHVH your maker. So the point is, you're afraid of man, you forget YHVH. That's not how this works. You recognize that YHVH is going to be there. He stretched out the heavens and he laid the foundations of the earth. You have feared continually every day because of the fury of your oppressor when he has prepared to destroy. And where is the fury of your oppressor? The captive exile hastens that he may be loosed, that he should not die in the pit, that his bread should not fail. We struggle and wrestle against discomfort and injustice. But I am YHVH your God, who divided the sea, whose wave roared. YHVH of hosts is his name. I have put my words in your mouth. I've covered you with the shadow of my hand. And this is what's interesting to me. Why has God done that? Why has he given us stewardship? Why has he put his words in us? He says that I may plant the heavens, lay the foundations of the earth, and say to Zion, you are my people. I believe plant the heavens goes beyond. This is something he's going to do with those that he has put his words in their mouth and in their heart, and their spirit is responsive to that. So, you know, there's certainly injustice that seems like it lasts forever, but it doesn't. And the people who administer it do not last forever, but the heavens are going to last forever. And it's not up there just because you can't see it. And so it's just God said, well, look what I can do. You don't even know. Well, we don't. But it's there because I think it's going to be planted. It's going to be seeded, and there's going to be harvest, and there's going to be increase. I believe it's for purpose, and I believe that purpose includes us. Isaiah 66. Our stewardship does not end when we die. It's temporarily paused. And we're going to have more things to have responsibility for if we are faithful after that. So Isaiah 66:22. As the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, says Yehovah, so shall your descendants and your name remain. Oh, really? So we were taught that in new heavens, new earth, everyone is a spirit being, there's no flesh left in existence. Now, there's some variations on this text and different versions, but I'm reading it where it is, and I think it's intact. As the new heavens and new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, says Yehovah, so shall your descendants and your name remain. And it will come to pass, well, in the new heavens and the new earth, ultimately, that from one moon to another, one new moon to another, from one Sabbath to another, all flesh shall come to worship before me, says Yehovah. Now they'll go forth and look on the corpses of the men who have transgressed against me. So there is judgment and justice, but it's on our Father's timing and his purposes, and his ways are higher than ours. We know that. But they'll go forth, look on the corpses of the men who have transgressed against me. Their worm doesn't die, their fire is not quenched, they're an abhorrence to all flesh. So just as these things are going to go forward and there's going to be great and wondrous creation, stewardship is going to continue and increase, the heavens are going to be planted, and those who sin and are evil and turn away will be judged, and they will be no more. So the whole story, go to Genesis 1, it was very good. Now you serve it. And in the end, it says, oh, what? You've been very bad. You're going to go away. And those who remain will continue to serve that which I have created, and he has created us. And caring for what he has given us is our rightful stewardship.